News this week includes Intel wanting to make AMD's CPUs. No! Also, we'll be covering PSP mods for the PlayStation Portal. Additionally, there's this weird peripheral. And Thermalright has a baby version of the Peerless Assassin. Before that, this video is brought to you by Lee and the O11D Evo XL. The O11D Evo XL builds upon the long-standing strengths of the O11D series by adding new features, like a rotated GPU layout to showcase the most important part of a build. The Evo XL also uses a removable motherboard tray that can adjust for different heights, making it tunable for every style. Additionally, these cases use Lee's compartmentalized approach to design to keep cables cleanly hidden behind the back of the case. Learn more at the link in the description below. So first, Intel is currently pushing its foundry services, or IFS, so hard that it is willing to make products for its competition. We've actually talked about this for a little bit. There's been discussion of Intel potentially making some NVIDIA products in the future, but this is part of Intel's decoupling of its fab plants, its foundry services, from its product teams, and it's continuing. So Intel recently started talking more about its 18 angstrom process node, and there was a Q&A session during Intel's IFS Direct Connect. Tom's Hardware, among other outlets, attended it, and Tom's posed this question to Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger. They asked, Intel will now offer its process nodes to some of its competitors, and there may be situations wherein your product teams are competing directly with competitors that are enabled by your crown jewels. How do you plan to navigate those types of situations and maybe soothe ruffled feathers on your product teams? Gelsinger replied and said this: there are Intel products and Intel Foundry. There's a clean line between those. And as I said on the last earnings call, we'll have a set up separate legal entity for Intel Foundry this year. We'll start posting separate financials associated with that going forward. The Foundry team's objective is simple: fill the fabs, deliver to the broadest set of customers on the planet. After this statement, Intel shares plummeted in price. Only one planet? Going further, Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger outlined some of the potentially competing customers that he'd like to serve with IFS, despite helping the enemy along the way in their attempt to overthrow TSMC and Samsung and make sure that Intel stays #1 as a foundry. So he said, quote, "We hope that includes Jensen or NVIDIA, Cristiano from Qualcomm, Sundar from Google, and you heard today it includes Satya from Microsoft. And I even hope that includes Lisa going forward. I mean, we want to be the foundry for the world." There it is again, just that narrow mindset of only one world. And if we're going to be the Western foundry at scale, we can't be discriminating about who's participating in that. Again, apparently, unless they're from a different planet, then it's okay. Intel continued and said, so unequivocally, it is to be the foundry for the world. Commit supply chains, leadership technology, the doors to the a la carte menu are wide open for the industry. Strategically, this has been a bold and actually consistent strategy for Intel for a while now. So IFS has been one of the, honestly, most interesting aspects of what Intel's doing, maybe alongside ARC, at least for our part of the market. And that's because IFS stands to potentially shore up Intel against setbacks that its product team might face. This probably was at least partially inspired by their extremely long delays in getting new architecture to market. On the CPU side, where AMD really gave Intel some trouble for a couple of years there, and still is, but it was a little more serious a few generations back. And so probably at some point in that window, they were looking at it going, how do we make sure we have money coming in, even if the product team is lagging behind on getting stuff out the door? So IFS being separate is probably a good thing. Either way, the rest of the Tom's Hardware article has some more interesting insights and quotes regarding Intel's willingness to be flexible with unique mixed chiplet packages. So you can read that if that piques your interest. But there's more to this story, and moving on from that, Intel also leaned heavily into the AI marketing in this discussion and talking with Microsoft about the roadmap for that. Capitalizing on the buzz that is AI, Intel has launched Intel Foundry, which the company is billing as, quote, the world's first systems foundry for the AI era. The announcement was made at the same event in Santa Clara, California, in which Intel added its 14 angstrom process to its technology roadmap. Intel revealed a new roadmap that includes updates to its Intel 3, 18 angstrom, and 14 angstrom processes. In a press release, Intel stated that it is planning a new node every 2 years, not counting refreshes in between. The company also claimed it expects to regain process leadership in 2025 with its 18 angstrom process. At the event, Microsoft announced that it would be using an 18A chip with company CEO Phetdara stating this, quote, "We're in the midst of a very exciting platform shift that'll fundamentally transform productivity for every individual organization and the entire industry. To achieve this vision, we need a reliable supply of the most advanced, high-performance, and high-quality semiconductors. That's why we're so excited to work with Intel Foundry, and why we've chosen a chip design we plan to produce on Intel 18A. Up next, more lawsuits. Losing a bit of its cool, Movemaster has filed legal complaints against AppleTech, which is a large, supplier for liquid coolers, alongside Enermax and Silverstone, who use AppleTech supply for some of their products. Movemaster alleges patent infringement here. That sounds familiar. And the liquid cooler market has long been consolidated. It's really just a few key suppliers where the manufacturers that we cover and you all know, they provide things like new feature sets, some of the engineering, so choosing how thick to make the radiator, maybe changing the specific supply of the impeller that's used, the cold plate, microfin density or height, things like that. But if they're using a supplier, it's companies like the radiator factories or like AppleTech or Asetek, to the extent that they kind of do it deep cool and Movemaster to make the actual moving parts, basically, or assemble them anyway, and source them for the pump and the liquid cooling components, and do some of the engineering on that front. So it's been consolidated for a long time now. Asetek historically was one of the most lawsuit-happy suppliers in the liquid cooling industry, to the extent that in some ways it may have stifled some of the options on the market, but it also encouraged some innovation, and that's why we get such good coolers that we have today in cases of, say, like EK's lineup, where we saw the massive impeller and cooling block when we reviewed their Elite series several years ago. Anyway, Asetek has mostly stopped its lawsuits after investors found out that it's not fun to lose those, and that was after winning several of them. But Movemaster now is back to try on its own, and interestingly, it has not named Lian Li or MSI that we're aware of as party to any of these lawsuits, despite both of those companies also using AppleTech for its liquid coolers. Movemaster claims ownership of 3 patents that are relevant here. There's the patent ending in 509446, 061450, and D856941. And Movemaster alleges that there were a number of product infringements that involve Silverstone's Ice Mist 240, PF240, PF240W, Ice Gem, Vita 240 Slim, and RGB controller, and Enermax's Aqua Fusion ADV, LickMax 3A RGB, LickTech 360 TR42 Slim, and RGB controller. While AppleTech doesn't sell retail CLCs itself, it was included in the lawsuit because it manufactured components for both Enermax and Silverstone here. Movemaster's filed complaint asserts that there were infringements surrounding the pump inside radiator design, as well as the ARGB mini controller. The company's asking for awards and damages and attorney's fees. As a reminder, Movemaster itself was sued by Asetek many years ago for AIO liquid cooler patent infringements in 2014, and it was forced to pay the company at least $600,000. It appears now that the hunted has become the hunter. There's an ancient philosopher we'd like to quote here.
There's always a bigger fish.
Some more history for this one. We cut that clip before Jar Jar started talking, so you're welcome. Just didn't want everyone to just leave the video. Why did retention go to 0 specifically here? Movemaster previously has also been involved in lawsuits and legal complaints from Asetek for things like the Fury X design, that AMD liquid-cooled video card, and Asetek also successfully sued Coolit in the past, which at the time was its primary competitor and was making a lot of Corsair liquid coolers, which also was using Asetek. Corsair was using both at that time. The liquid cooler market here appears to remain one of the most litigious aspects of this industry. This might be interesting. Maybe I'll get Vincent Augusta, the attorney we've worked with for some of the videos in the past, like the Lian Li fans lawsuit against Fantex and Thermalright. So maybe we'll get him on to talk about this one as well if there's interest in it. Okay. Up next, Brazilian games journalist Pedro Henrique Lipe initially reported that the successor to the Nintendo Switch will be coming out in Q1 of 2025, and this claim has since been corroborated by numerous outlets. The short version is that Nintendo has been in communication with games publishers and has prepared them for a planned Q1 25 launch, delayed from previous guidance for Q4 of this year. Multiple outlets, including Eurogamer, reported that this was to allow more time to finalize first-party games and software features. For other Switch 2 news, Digital Foundry previously posted a video noting that the Switch 2 is likely using NVIDIA's T239 processor. In September, VGC reported that Epic's Unreal Engine 5 Matrix Awakens demo was running on the Switch successor with DLSS and ray tracing enabled behind closed doors at Gamescom. Of course, nothing's confirmed at the moment, and guesses abound for what a successor to the Nintendo Switch could be called. They could take a huge risk and go sequential. Switch 2, two follows one. The one is implied on the Switch. Also, they could go for the high-end market. The Switch Pro, for example. Maybe they go with the Switch Super or the TI Super Switch. There's a lot of options here. However, Gamers Nexus can report and confirm that it has received an exclusive leak detailing the name of the Nintendo Switch, and actually, it's going to be called the Nintendo Switch Switcheroo 2. AMD has a rumored 7900 GRE launch for the US market and the rest of Europe and the world. The 7900 GRE is not a new video card. It launched last year in China, and it was limited in market availability in a couple of European countries. So as a quick reminder, the GRE part of the naming stands for Golden Rabbit Edition, which AMD has now used for signifying its China-only launches, and this is maybe an analog to the 4090D or Dragon, which was a China launch as well. And the 7900 GRE is now rumored to be coming to the US market later this month. This is in a report from Video Cards, and they directly referenced the Gigabyte Gaming OC version. This came about because a UK retail site, awd-it.co.uk, posted a listing for sale briefly. The rumored $550 price is potentially interesting too, because the 7800 XT would be below it in the lineup. That retails for $500, and it has significantly different specs. And again, the GRE, we know the specs because it is a card that's already out. The 7900 GRE has 20 more CUs than the 7800 XT, but has lower core and memory clocks and lower bandwidth. So we'll just have to benchmark it. Now, fortunately, we picked up a 7900 GRE actually last year, right around the launch of it. We bought it through AliExpress, I think at the time, or Taobao or something. We never got around to fully testing it because we were so slammed at the end of the year with all the roundups. But we'll go ahead and get it on the benches now, especially since it's allegedly going to have wider availability. So if it comes to be true, we'll have some kind of benchmark or review up for you because now that it's going to be wide availability, the whole audience could potentially buy it. It's worth running through the tests. And what we are curious about is at what price would you think it's a good value? Because if it's at this $550 price point, that definitely puts it in competition with a lot of cards from both AMD's existing lineup, its last gen, and NVIDIA's current lineup. So Thermalright has a Peerless Assassin 120 Mini. They just launched this, and the Mini is in all caps for maximum irony. It's a dual tower design with 6 heat pipes and a single 120mm fan in the middle. The cooler is 135mm tall, making it 22mm shorter than the original. It pushes the fan down lower to rest directly on the top side of the cold plate. This means that the Mini gives up some cooling surface area, but having a fan like this actually positively impacts VRM thermals in a big way in our testing. This one's available for $35, so it's about the same price as the original Peerless Assassin. It's just a little shorter. We are getting one into test. We just bought one actually. It's available in black or white, and we'll have a review in the near future. So at this point, we're rolling pretty fast between the ATX and cooler reviews right now, which feels great because we took almost a year off of ATX case reviews to just rebuild and sort of start fresh with new components, new approach. And now coolers, we took something like 6 months off. So fully back at it. All right, the next story goes off the deep end for peripherals, and it is about a weird new gamepad called the Movemaster RSG-1, and it seeks to push the peripheral inputs beyond the limitations, whether those are perceived or real. This is an extremely angular chunk of plastic with a pseudo joystick grip on the top for movement and 10 cherry silent keyboard switches arranged within reach of the fingers for other inputs. The basic idea is that keyboards were and are built for typing, not gaming, and it's possible to design something more suited to gaming that offers more than the left half of a standard controller. To give the idea some credit, normal WASD movement occupies 3 fingers, leaving the thumb and pinky obviously to do the rest unless you want to move off of WASD, which sets us up for the perfect infomercial with grayscale and sad-looking actor. So Movemaster has lots of options to film the "have you ever had this problem?" moving moving the index finger to E to open a chest in a game and instantly compromising your position where you can no longer strafe to the right without moving it back, introducing no less than milliseconds of latency. The grip-based movement is what differentiates this, though, from more traditional gamepads like the Razer Tartarus V2 or the long-discontinued Logitech G13. Some of those have thumbsticks on the side to integrate analog-style movement and attempt parts of what Movemaster's talking about here, but as far as we know, the Movemaster's layout is unique, and let us know if you're aware of another that does it like this. The company claims that reaction time and the potential for technical movement in-game stays high due to the short distance of travel it takes to actuate. This is maybe a stretch for a comparison, but if you're familiar with the Neo Geo's 8-direction click joystick, it's like that, but you move it with your whole hand. The second row of keys is adjustable, so it can be set to a comfortable distance for each finger. The key switches are swappable via crimped terminals instead of being soldered internally for better repairability or easier customization for those who want a specific Cherry-style switch. And the closest competition is probably the Azeron Cyborg, which has way more inputs, but is almost entirely 3D printed. The RSG-1 is reportedly in production and available for 160 euros. Let us know what you think of it. If you buy it, we probably won't be testing it. And finally, Google engineers have hacked the PlayStation Portal, the streaming handheld device that Sony released recently, to get it running an emulator natively for the PSP. Google information security engineer Andy Wen tweeted, quote, "After more than a month of hard work, PPSSPP is running natively on PlayStation Portal. Yes, we hacked it with help from XYZ and Zeta 2. In conjunction with this tweet, there was an image of Grand Theft Auto Liberty City's stories running on the handheld. Though the device wasn't designed for natively playing games, Wen noted that the Portal has roughly 6 gigabytes of storage, and the included processing capabilities enables it to actually run some stuff locally. Kind of interesting. Google's engineers said that this is an entirely software-based solution. There were no hardware hacks required, and also indicated that they don't intend to release the expanded functionality anytime soon, but maybe it'll end up out there at some point. The good news is that for those of you who like the PlayStation a lot, now you can play your PlayStation while you play your PlayStation while PlayStation in. It's truly revolutionary times we're in. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching as always. If you want to hear more about consoles, watch the previous episode from a couple days ago. We talked about the N64, and yes, it was news. Otherwise, subscribe for more as always. Go to store.gamersnexus.net to help us out directly, and we'll see you all next time.